In this video, we are going to graph a quadratic. We're going to be graphing it in MyMathLab, so there's just kind of some little nuances we want to make sure that we're comfortable with graphing. But here's an example of an equation. And I picked this one because it gets a little messy. So it's asking us to find the vertex, the equation for the axis of symmetry, determine if we're going to have a high or a low point, and then we're going to graph it. Okay, so let's go through the steps to doing that. So here's our equation, and we need the vertex. So to get the vertex, we're going to do x equals negative b divided by 2a. And so our b value is -3, so it's a -3 divided by 2 times our a, which is another -3. And that then turns into, we have +3 over a -6. So that turns into a -1/2. So our x value is -1/2. To find our y value, we're going to plug that in. So it's going to be a -3. We're going to plug in a -1/2 and square it. And then we have it here. Okay, so we're going to go through the math here. So if we square a -1/2, we're getting ourselves a 1/4 that we're going to multiply by -3. And then here we're going to get a negative and a negative, so that's a +3/2. And then +1. Okay, so if we put this together, this turns into -3/4. But I need to add everything together with it, so I'm going to make fourths out of all of these. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom here by 2. So 6/4, and then I'll multiply that one. Well, I'll make it a 4/4 because that's 1, but it gives us our common denominator. So we put all this stuff together, we got a 10 minus a 3, 7/4. All right, so our vertex is going to be a -1/2, 7/4. Okay, our axis of symmetry is the x value of this. So our axis of symmetry is going to be x equals -1/2. And because our graph is a negative, that means our parabola is going to go down somewhere, somehow, and we're going to have a high point. So we're going to have a maximum at 7/4. Okay, not at, sorry, a maximum of 7/4. The at is the -1/2. The maximum's happening at -1/2, but the actual maximum value is 7/4. Okay, so we have all of our pieces. Let's make sure that we can put all this into MyMathLab. All right, so let me go back to that one. Okay, so here we are. So our vertex was -1/2, comma, comma, 7/4. All right, so good. And then our axis of symmetry is going to be an equation. So it's x equals -1/2. Okay, so our axis of symmetry is always just x equals the x value. And then we will have a maximum. And our maximum value is 7/4. Okay, so just make sure that you read that. Doesn't want where it's at or what it is. So it is 7/4. All right, so now the graph part. Okay, so we click to enlarge and we're selecting the parabola, and our point was -1/2. And if it helps to kind of look at up here, here's the coordinate that's happening. So -1/2, 7/4. These are fourths, so I can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's where I want to put my parabola. Okay, so now in order to graph this on MyMathLab, you need another point, right? So like this is going to be, this other point is going to really kind of graph this quadratic. Now, if we were doing this by hand, this is where I would talk about, hey, let's figure out what the pattern is. There is a pattern on all quadratics, and that 3 right there affects the pattern. So how does it affect the pattern? Well, we're not doing it by hand. We're doing it by MyMathLab. So we need one other point. And that one other point is actually in the equation. You have a y-intercept of 1. So I will just plot the y-intercept of 1, and that's our graph. And then we'll check our answer. Okay, so if you're doing it by hand, you're going to need a little bit more information than that. But since it's MyMathLab and it's just naturally creating a quadratic graph for you, your other point is the y-intercept. And it's always in the equation, at least when it's in this form, it's always in the equation. And so you don't have to do anything with it. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. And that was graphing quadratics, a little bit tricky one, especially involved MyMathLab.